Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tyler Overmeyer, and I'll be presenting our final review presentation. Joining me are my classmates Roderick Van and Jan Hyman. I will be presenting Module 4, and we'll start with the topic of engineers and corporations and their intertwined relationship. In the modern era, corporations have become ubiquitous. Compared to earlier times, the need for large organizations to operate complex technological systems has led to the proliferation of corporations in various industries. The boom of corporations can be attributed to many factors. Loose regulations and businessmen lobbying for legislation promoting the corporation are just a few. Corporations have played a pivotal role in the advancement of society with innovations such as Ford's Model T, Bell's telephone system, and General Electric's power and light. Over time, the influence of corporations has led to the decline in the number of independent engineers. By 1965, only 5% of engineers remained independent, highlighting the shift towards employment within corporate structures. The next topic is engineers and management. Research has shown that a significant portion of engineers over the age of 55 hold management positions. Engineers tend to excel in bureaucratic settings. They adapt well to inherent restrictions, thriving while working within budgets and time constraints, and manage to maintain a certain level of autonomy and decision-making. For engineers, corporate loyalty often takes precedent over personal recognition. Their commitment to the success of the organization and its objective is a high priority, driving their dedication to achieving long-term success. Next, we'll look at the relationship between engineers and laborers. Engineers hold a considerable influence over workers. Their decisions and designs shape the working conditions and experience of laborers. It's important to note that workers seek more than just high wages from their jobs. They desire fulfilling work, safe and fair working conditions, and a sense of autonomy. Historically, working conditions have been poor into the early 20th century until reforms like the New Deal aimed to address workers' rights and improve the quality of life. Frederick Taylor also introduced the scientific management method aimed to increase production and wages, but often came to the cost of stripping away workers' autonomy. Lastly, I'll focus on engineers in politics, which historically has been relatively uncommon. One notable exception is President Herbert Hoover, who began his career as a professional mining engineer and later transitioned into civil service, earning a reputation as a diligent worker, problem solver, and humanitarian. Hoover was elected president in 1928. Unfortunately, the following year marked the onset of the Great Depression, a devastating economic crisis that profoundly impacted the American economy. The severity of the economic downturn ultimately led to the significant defeat of Hoover in the subsequent presidential election. That's all I have for you today. Thank you for your time, and up next will be Roderick Van.
Hello everybody, my name is Roderick Van, and today I'll be discussing Module 5, Engineering, Military, and the Cold War. It began with West Point in 1828, based off French traditions. There were interchangeable parts for the gun manufacturing companies to allow for easier years of gun and equipment in the field. So during this time, the Army Corps of Engineers focused on developing snag boats to clear the rivers to allow for easier travel. Land-grant colleges also expand and to contribute to the improvements and changes in engineering. During the World Wars, we also discussed how inventors and the military able to come together to create inventions such as the gyroscope, the airplanes by the Wright brothers, the wireless telegraphy and telephony by DeForest and Essendon. These great arms races was also the part of the tension that led up to the World War II back in 1914, and arms race was highlighted by the HMS Dreadnought. In World War II, the collaboration between government, scientists, and engineers had grew to an unprecedented level, able to create lots of new technology such as airplanes with jet engines, anti-aircraft weapons, and radar systems. During this time, the Soviets put the first man in space using Sputnik and had outbeat the U.S. And the U.S. beat everyone else out by placing the first man on the moon. Vannevar Bush, who was head of scientific and research development back in 1941, is the author of the book The Endless Frontier, and also he oversaw many projects such as the Manhattan Project. During the Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb was developed at multiple locations within the U.S., particularly the MIT Rad Lab. Also during this time, the ENIAC, which is the world's first electronic computer, was developed. It was used to calculate artillery firing tables and later nuclear weapons. During the Cold War, the government started spending most of their money on engineering operations within the military. It was spent on operations such as SAGE, Atlas rockets and the space race, ICBMs, and nuclear proliferation, and also satellites. There were successes and failures around this time, and one of the successes were the development of ARPANET, which is the basis for the internet. And Reagan's strategic defense system was considered a failure because it never worked as intended.
Hello, this is Jan, and in this video I'm going to give you a small summary of what we've learned in Module 6, the politics of algorithms. And yeah, at first, this is such a rich tapestry that weaves together politics, economics, and social justice. But let's start with algorithms. They've become an inseparable part of our daily lives, from social media feeds to credit scoring. They are making decisions on our behalf, but let's pause and think, who write these algorithms? This is where the politics come in. Often the creators of algorithms are not representative of the diverse society we live in. Biases unintentionally creep into algorithms and can perpetuate inequalities. Take, for example, the Allegheny family screening tool that we discussed earlier. It uses data that disproportionately targets poor families, conflating poverty with neglect. This brings us to our second topic, diversity in engineering. For years, engineering has been a male-dominated field. However, as society progresses, we are seeing an unimproved but still not satisfactory representation of women and minorities in engineering. Their perspectives and experiences are invaluable in creating more equitable and inclusive technologies. The inclusion of diverse voices helps mitigate biases and fosters innovation that benefits a broader range of people. Finally, let's delve into social, economic, and political and racial consequences of information computing technology. As the pace of technological advancement accelerates, so does the impact on society. On one hand, ICT has the potential to democratize information and catalyze social change. On the other hand, it can exacerbate inequalities. For instance, the digital divide leaves those without access to technology behind, further marginalizing already disadvantaged communities. In addition, the data harvested by ICT can be wielded for both benevolent and malicious purposes, affecting privacy, autonomy, and democratic processes. In conclusion, as we stand at the crossroads of increasingly digital society, it's imperative that we critically examine the role and impact of algorithms and ICT. By fostering diversity in engineering and being vigilant about the ethical use of technology, we can work towards a more inclusive and just society. We need to remember that technology is a tool. It's up to us to ensure it's wielded for the greater good. Thank you for your attention.